Hello from the Museum of Natural History. If you are watching this video, I suspect that you are already aware that we have a total eclipse of the sun coming to the United States on April 8th of this year. I thought we'd spend a few minutes talking about what you can expect to see from Ann Arbor, where you really want to be if you're planning to watch the total eclipse, and talk a little bit about safety, what you need to know to watch this with your family safely, and also maybe some things to do during the eclipse itself. What can you expect? What kind of fun things can you do with your family, with your kids, while this is going on? So first, I'm going to switch our view a little bit to a piece of software called Stellarium. Stellarium is a free piece of software that you can put on any computer. I've used it for over a decade. It's very common in astronomy circles because it's a really useful way to be able to predict what the sky is going to look like at any time, at any location on the Earth. And it's just a very sort of user-friendly piece of software. So if you want to get into the night sky a little bit, Stellarium can be a really good tool for that. I have set our location to Ann Arbor, and I've set the time to about 1 p.m. or so. It uses 24-hour time. That's why you're seeing 13 there. But you can see in the sky that we already have a little black spot in front of the sun. Now, a couple things, so of course that is the moon. A couple things to know. So while modern astronomy software is really good at predicting the positions of virtually anything in the sky, and incredibly trustworthy for those purposes, it does any Stellarium, but also any piece of software, when it's showing you what it's going to look like in terms of the color, the brightness, the intensity, that kind of thing. There's a little bit of artistic license there, and so in a few ways you should expect things to look a little bit different, and I'll talk about that when we get there. But the alignment, the actual position of things in the sky, this type of software is really good at. So if I start marching time forward, you are going to see that the moon, of course, on this day is going to start blocking part of the sun. Right? It's going to move from our perspective directly in front of the sun here, and at this point we would call this a partial eclipse. The name kind of gives it away. It's covering part, but not all of the sun, so that's a partial eclipse. This is one example of what I was talking about when I said that exactly how things are going to look might be different than what Stellarium shows you. So for instance, don't expect to see details on the moon, right? The side of the moon facing us should be black, but Stellarium is kind of reminding us here that we're looking at the moon, right? So we don't expect to see that, but again, the alignment is the important part here. If I keep going, the moon begins to leave the surface of the sun from our perspective, and of course, we're just talking about this from the Earth's view. Our alignment is getting worse and worse now, but there was never a point in Ann Arbor, if you stay here, there's never a point where the moon is blocking the entire surface of the sun. It gets very close. What we call the point of greatest totality, the point at which the moon is covering the most of the sun that it's going to, from Ann Arbor, is about 98% of the sun. And there's a concern from people like me that a lot of folks are going to hear that and think to themselves that, well, 98% is awfully close to 100%, and so it's probably not a lot different, and so I'm just going to stay in my backyard around here, and I'm going to watch it from the comfort of my home. And a lot of times that would be perfectly fine, but eclipses are one of those things where 98% is very different from totality for one specific reason. The photosphere of the sun, the bright surface of the sun, even 2% of it is enough to obscure your view of the coolest part, the best part of a total eclipse. To demonstrate that, I'm going to move our location a little bit. So first I'm going to back up so that our alignment is still in that partial phase. And then I'm going to take our perspective. So again, Stellarium can show you the view anywhere on Earth. And I have set up Bowling Green, Ohio here. And so we have hopped to Bowling Green, Ohio. And so that was the little position change there in our sky. And if we do this same thing, but this time standing somewhere in the middle of Bowling Green, the moon will block the entire surface of the sun. And something else has shown up now. And this is what I was getting at. You have to be on what we call the path of totality. You have to see a total eclipse if you want to be able to see the corona of the sun. This is also another example of where Stellarium to me is overselling a bit. I don't remember the corona being quite that vivid. It is very noticeable. It is a very clear thing, but I don't remember being quite so stark contrast with the moon. But okay, so the corona, this part of the sun that looks like it's streaming off the surface, that's very real and it's always there, but usually the brighter part of the sun obscures your view of the corona. What you're seeing is plasma shooting off the surface of the sun at millions of degrees in temperature. Celsius or Fahrenheit doesn't matter. It's millions of degrees in both. And of course it's different numbers, but the point is it's millions, right? I mean, it's crazy, crazy hot stuff shooting off the surface of the sun. And the only time you get to see this is during a total eclipse. That's what makes these worth traveling for. You get to experience an incredibly powerful part of the universe around you in a very intuitive, sort of internalizable way, right? So let's talk about where you want to be if you want to see this, if you want to see the corona jetting off the surface of the sun. I'm going to move to a website made by NASA. They've done a really nice job this time around of making an interactive map that's going to give you a lot of useful information. So if you need to, pause the video here and type in that address. The QR code will also take you to that address. I will say, though, that I was testing it out on a mobile device using that QR code. It takes you to the right website, but the map is on a small screen, pretty small, and a little bit tough to interact with. So if you can use a larger screen, that's probably the way to go here. So this is the map that is going to have a lot of useful information for you. Anywhere on this gray line here, that's the path of totality. So you need to be somewhere, anywhere on that line, and you will see a total eclipse of the sun. Now, the nice thing about this map, and the reason that I'm recommending this one, and there's a few other ones that are like it, but I just like showing off NASA when I can. So again, this is where you are, right? This is Ann Arbor. If you go just a little over an hour south, Bowling Green, Ohio, right, is on that. It's not right on the edge. It's not right in the middle. Ideally, the more towards the middle you can be, the better. But really, anywhere a decent amount onto that line will be just fine. The nice thing about this map is that you can click on the town that you plan on going to, Bowling Green or not, right? Like I just picked this one because it's kind of nearby. If you plan on going somewhere else, you can find that town or a town, really nearby, and it will show you specific information for that. It'll show you when what time the partial eclipse will start, what time the total eclipse will start and end, and what time the partial eclipse will end as well. It'll show you how long totality will last where you are. And give you the times. The reason they show you the duration of totality is because it does change depending on where you are. The closer you are to the center of that line, the longer totality is going to be where you are. But you can see it doesn't make a massive difference. 4 minutes towards the middle and 3 minutes as long as you're not right there on the edge. If you get pretty close to the edge, you might only be looking at a little over a minute or so. So the closer you can get to the center, the better. But really, anywhere just off that edge is great too. Okay, so now let's start talking about some things that you can do to view this. First of all, if you are going to be looking at an eclipse with your eyes, you need to be wearing eclipse glasses until the moment of totality. During totality, you can look at it, but any partial phase, you have to be wearing eclipse glasses. So make sure you pick those up anywhere you can, really. The museum does have them for sale, but just anywhere you can get them. They only cost a few dollars, and that's the best way to watch an eclipse in the sky. Another way that you'll see a lot of is making your own pinhole viewer, and that is definitely another way to go. Again, it's not as ideal because you don't get to experience it in a direct way, right? You're looking at the cast image of that eclipse. But if you can't, because when it gets close, eclipse glasses get tougher and tougher to find. So if you can't get your own, pinhole viewers can be another way to go. People like me or at least I try to steer people away from using cereal boxes. That's one you'll see a lot of. And cereal boxes, it's kind of fun because it makes a really dark space for you to look at. But the problem is that you want to be able to project the image for the greatest distance that you can. And a cereal box kind of limits you to maybe a foot or so. So a much better way, in my opinion, to go about it. This is something that NASA has sent us. We've been using it in various activities and things, and they've added a lot of nice, pretty graphics and like text and things on it. But ultimately, what this is it's a piece of cardstock with a hole punched in it. Right? I mean, that's all it is, and it's about the size of a hole punch. Right? If you get an index card or an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, regular old paper, and you punch a hole in the middle with a hole punch, you have an eclipse viewer. Right? And you cast a shadow with the card itself, and you try and get an image of the sun on the ground below you. So you hold this out in front of you, and you let the light from the sun pass through that hole, and you'll get an image of the eclipse on the ground. Ideally, some ways to help this is to tape a piece of white paper on the ground as well, so you have a nice clean white image or a white surface to project that image onto. And some other things that you can do to play around with this with your family is you can vary the size of that hole, and you'll find some different things will happen. The larger hole you make, the brighter image you're going to get, but also it's going to get fuzzier and fuzzier. So there's a trade-off there, and you can kind of play with that. What's the best size hole for you given your light circumstances that you have? The smaller and smaller hole you use, the crisper and clearer the image that you're projecting is going to be, but the dimmer and dimmer it gets. And so there's probably an ideal hole for your situation, an ideal size for your situation to get a nice image projected onto your surface. So that's something you can do. Another thing, if you want to have your kids explore other things besides just hole-punched cards, anything with a hole in it will work. Have them search your house for things that already have holes in it. So colanders are really fun for this, because like things you strain spaghetti with, right? They have 100 holes in it. You hold a colander out over a sidewalk or a piece of paper during an eclipse, and you have hundreds of little projected eclipses onto the ground. If you have a tree nearby that's got leaves and it's blowing in the wind, and those leaves, the shadow of the tree changes as the wind is blowing those leaves, it will also project suddenly the shadow of that tree. The light hitting between those leaves becomes projected eclipse images, and the leaf shadow of a tree, you'll just see lots of little eclipses on the ground. So those kinds of explorations can be really fun for your kids during this time. Okay, hope that helps. I hope you are able to make some really fun, lasting memories with the people you care about, and we hope to see you all at the museum fairly soon.